Okay, we are continuing with Critognatus' speech, Part D. On, quod ad diem non venerant, de eorum fide constantiaque dubitatis? Quid ergo? Romanos in illis ulterioribus munitionibus anime causa quotidie exercere putatus? Si, elorum nuntiis confirmare non potestas, omni ad ito praecepto, his utimini testibus approprinquare eorum adventum, cuius rei timore exteriti diem noctemque in opere versantur. Okay, let's break this down. On here tells us we have some sort of question coming up. Quod is a clause marker, introducing a clause that starts there and ends at venerant, so I'm going to put brackets there. Oh, yay, we have a prepositional phrase here, and it goes all the way down to here. And then over here we have our main verb, dubitatis. Let's see. Or, do you doubt because they did not come on that day? Do you doubt de eorum fide constantiaque, about the faith and constancy of those guys being the other Gauls who are coming to rescue them? Keep going. Quid ergo? Why or what, therefore? Okay, next sentence. Romanos in illis ulterioribus munitionibus anime causa quotidie exercere putatus. Well, we're starting out with a nifty little accusative there. So that's telling me we need a subject and a verb, but before we get there, Caesar is going to give us a prepositional phrase starting at in, going all the way down to munitionibus. So we still are trying to figure out what the subject is and verb that's governing Romanos. Let's see. Anime causa looks ablative to me. A chunk there. Quotidie is just a boring adverb. And then we have exercere, which is a passive infinitive before we finally get to the main verb, putatus. So I'm going to circle the main verb. Do you think, and the nifty thing about putatus is that introduces our favorite construction, or Caesar's favorite construction, an indirect statement. The indirect statement needs an accusative subject, which is Romanos. Do you think that the Romans, and notice how it starts here at the Romans. It encompasses this prepositional phrase, and then it goes here, down to our infinitive. So putatus is a main verb introducing this ginormous indirect statement. Do you think that the Romans every day are exercising, just for the fun of it, are working on those exterior fortifications? Keep going here. Si illorum nuntiis confirmare non potestas, omni ad ito praecepto. Okay, before we get anywhere else, I see that we have a dependent clause introduced by the si here. So it's not our main clause, but there's something going on. Then, when I keep going, we have ablative. Illorum is a genitive, talking about those messengers. Confirmare is a passive infinitive. Why do we have an infinitive here? Because it goes with this verb potestas. Because potest takes an infinitive. Possum takes an infinitive. So the main verb of the si clause here is you. If you are not able to be confirmed by the messages of those guys. Why are you not able to be confirmed by the messages of those guys? Why can't you be resolved or strengthened? Oh, and then Caesar tells us why, with an ablative absolute. So that's why you might not be able to know that help is coming, because we have this ablative absolute talking about how the Romans have blocked every opening. We'll keep going, and then he's continuing after his si clause. He's got, he's utimini. Oh, utimini, one of our filthy 5 deponent verbs. Here's our main verb right here. I'm going to make that blue. use these guys as witnesses. His testibus, use these guys as witnesses, i.e., use these Romans as witnesses. Witnesses that, and that introduces a sneaky indirect statement, witnesses that the arrival of those guys is coming. So even if you can't get a message from your buddies, look at the Romans, these guys, as witnesses that the arrival of your buddies is approaching. We will keep going. Cujus rei timore exteriti diem noctemque in opere versantur. Okay, cujus is genitive, and it modifies rei. Timore is ablative, so on account of fear of which thing, and we're expecting something passive here because we have an ablative running around, and here's our passive participle. Terrified, and it's probably talking about the Romans. Terrified by the fear of which thing, and then we have an accusative of time within which, day and night, presumably all day and night. They are occupied or turned in work, i.e. they are working on those fortifications day and night. So, if you don't recognize that our guys are coming, use these guys, the Romans, as witnesses that the arrival of our friends is approaching. The Romans, terrified or bothered by the fear of which thing, i.e. the imminent arrival, the Romans turn all day and all night into work. Okay, now we're moving on to part E, original. Quid ergo mei concili est? Facere, quod nostri maiores nequaquam pari bello cimbrorum Teutonumque fecerent, qui in opida compulsi, ac simili in opia subjacti, eorum corporibus, qui aetate ad bellum in utiles videbantur, vitam toleraverent, neque se hostibus tradiderent. Cujus rei, si exemplum non haberemus, tamen libertatis causa institui et posteris prodi pulcherrimum judicarem. Wow, dude, this is a pretty intense plan here. So he starts off with his direct question to the audience. All right, you've heard me criticizing you guys and criticizing the idea to fight. What then is of my plan, i.e., what's my idea? And the idea, of course, is a little bit complicated. All right, we're going to start with the plan is to do. Notice we have facere as the subject infinitive. It is acting as a noun. My plan is to do something. To do, let's see, quod nostri maiores, and then we start with a relative clause here. To do what? To do something which, nostri maiores, we have nostri is an adjective modifying maiores. Maiores here means like ancestors. Nequaquam pari bello. Okay, we have another noun adjective pair. Let's see, I'm going to put that thing there. Pari bello. Notice it's dative. Let's see, Cimbrorum Teutonemque. Apparently, he's going to suggest that they emulate the ancestors during the war of the Cimbri and the Teutoni. To do what our ancestors, and then here's the verb that goes with nostri maiores, what our ancestors did. So we're going to do something that the old guys did. Now let's keep going. So we've got this quote clause here. So the quote clause starts there and ends there. And then he jumps into another relative clause, qui, which of course refers to our ancestors. So we're going to do what our ancestors did in that other war. And now he goes on to describe our ancestors. Qui in opida compulsi, we have a prepositional phrase, who in the town, compulsi, having been forced, pushed. It is a participle modifying qui. What does he want us to do? But it does sound kind of similar, right? They were pushed into town just like we were in Alicia, and they were subyacti, another participle, modifying qui, the ancestors. So let's see. And subyacti by similar poverty, i.e., subjected to the similar famine because they probably got forced into a town and ran out of supplies. So our ancestors who, having been pushed into a town and subjected or tormented by a similar poverty, what did they do? Eorum corporibus, on the bodies of those guys. Oh no, this is just so gross. Of those guys who, so qui, this qui goes with that eorum. By the bodies of those guys who, oh, and then we have some nifty ablatives. An ablative here, on account of age, who what? Where's the verb that goes with qui? Here it is, videbantur, who seemed unuseful for war. What about those guys who seemed unuseful for war? Something about with the bodies. With the bodies of those guys who seemed unuseful on account of age for war, our ancestors tolerated life and did not hand themselves to the enemy. Wow, that's really creepy. Let's see, did you get that? Our ancestors who, squished into a town, subject to the same famine, they tolerated life with the bodies, that's ablative, with the bodies of those guys, of those old folks, who seemed unuseful for war on account of their age. How do you tolerate life when you're out of food with someone else's body? I think he's going all cannibal-like. Yucco patui. Cuius rei, si exemplum non haberemus, tamen libertatis causa institui et posteris prodi pulcherrimum judicarum. Okay. Cuius rei is, of course, genitive of which thing. And then he gets a C. Look, I am seeing C plus a subjunctive, and a subjunctive looks like a contrary to fact. And since these are imperfect subjunctives, this is a present contrary to fact. If we did not have an example of such thing, I would judge, however, for the sake of liberty, that such an example, such a great example, a beautiful example, be instituted and procured for posterity. So I would judge or decide, and then we've got these passive infinitives dependent upon judicarum. Causa is ablative, libertatis, of course, is genitive, because whenever you have causa plus a genitive, it's for the sake of. So if we did not have an example of such thing, of previous cannibalism, I would decide, however, for the sake of freedom, that such an example, and exemplum is understood as the object of pulcherrimum, an example be instituted and produced for posterity. That's some pretty hardcore grandpa action going on there.